Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're hanging out. Camelback location of Twin Peaks. The gang's all here, and we roll until 4 o'clock. Howard Balzer is our guest, Sirius XM NFL Radio, also Cards Wire for USA Today, and you can find him on X at hbalzer721. Howard, welcome as always, pal. Let's just pick your brain, your assessment of what the Arizona Cardinals did, going really heavy on the defensive side in the draft.
Yeah, I think everyone expected it to be an emphasis on defense. I don't know if anyone could have predicted 6 of the 7 picks, and I would say the Cardinals probably couldn't have even predicted that. But I think when we look at the individual picks, I think that there's a lot of promise in a lot of them, and I think there was a lot of value in the players they got at certain spots. Now, the caveat, guys, on that is that especially in the second round with Will Johnson, people are raving about this, and Jonathan Gannon is going how he got texted from 8 defensive coordinators saying this is the best cornerback in the draft, which is probably true when he's healthy. Mm-hmm. And that's the big question. And I think that's one of the reasons that, they got some of these guys where they did because of some health questions in college. And that's certainly the case with Will Johnson. And from what I've been told, guys, is that while everyone's concentrating on this supposed knee issue, which is a residual from a knee injury a couple of years ago, a big question is the turf toe that he had, which knocked him out for a bunch of games last year. It affected his off-season work in conditioning and preparing for the combine and all those things. And so, yeah, he's a hell of a player and a hell of a talent. There's no doubt. But as we all know in the NFL, being available is the big question. But if he is, that's a great pick. And I think, like I said, they got good value with a bunch of their other picks too.
How do you feel that in that pick? Obviously, I think they really feel that the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak. That if he is somebody that still needs to be healed up, you give him a couple extra months here and there, that they've got enough depth at that cornerback defensive back spot they can afford to have him sit tight until he's completely healthy?
Well, you're definitely going to have him sit tight until he's completely healthy, and you have to be able to really monitor that well, because when you have that type of injury, a lot of times it takes a while, and there's not a lot of times the recovery is slow because of the blood flow down to the bottom of the foot. So I think they're obviously going to be very, very careful with him. But they, like you said, they felt they were in a position. They have some pretty good depth at corner, but certainly they're counting a lot on this guy. And the one reality is we can say he was the best corner in the draft and all those things that I just mentioned, but there are a lot of other teams that passed on him.
Yes.
And obviously there was concern around the league about him. Well, he'll have the motivation. You always hear these guys talk about motivation to prove teams wrong. Well, that's one thing to prove it with your play, but your health, a lot of times you don't have control over that. And that's the big question. And we know how the Cardinals have been affected at a lot of spots over the last few years because of injuries to players that they were really counting on.
We all like the Walter Nolan pick. I was quite frankly who the best available offensive lineman would be at that point, but the 2 were gone. But I like this pick with Walter Nolan. But the one I really like for a 4th rounder, Cody Simon, the linebacker from Ohio State. I really like that pick. I watched this kid for a couple years. Watch he's done in big games. This to me, man, one of the better picks. Easily could have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick.
I'm with you 100% on that. And he plays a position that doesn't have. I don't hate to use the word value sometimes, but it's not valued that highly with inside linebackers unless you're one of these great middle linebackers in the Ray Lewis type of guy. But in terms of what this team needs, that's the position of need. I mean, we had all this discussion throughout the offseason about Kaiser White, and I think it was clear that he was not coming back to this team. Now, I'm not going to say that Simon's going to be Kaiser White right off the bat, but he has the smarts, he has the ability. He's not great in pass coverage, but he'll be better than White was coming down near the end of his career, and just a very, very smart kid, because if you're going to play that Mike position, you're the one most of the time calling the signals and getting everybody lined up and doing all those things. So I'm with you 100% on that. I love that pick where they got him in the 4th round, and they had a lot of good intel on him. The linebackers coach, guys, he was his first year as a linebackers coach last year with Ohio State, is James Laurinaitis, who I got to know pretty well back in my days covering the Rams in St. Louis. And he was his coach. And Laurinaitis raves about him with his smarts, his intelligence, and just his football playing ability. So I think he's going to be a fun guy to watch.
Isn't Laurinaitis also from Ohio State? Did he play at Ohio State?
He did play at Ohio State. And here's the best part. His dad was Hawk. Hawk.
The claw and the hawk.
It was
combined.
Professional wrestling.
That's it. Pro wrestling. His dad was the Hawk. That's great. Here's my question, and I'm going to steal it from Manuch because this was his pet peeve, is that they didn't go after a home run hitter to try to stretch the field with a wide receiver who would force that action. Is that a major concern to you, Howard, with the receiving core that they have right now, or not?
And that's a quarterback thought, too, right there, Howard.
Yeah, it is.
No, absolutely. No, I think it is a concern. I don't know if it's a major concern, but it is a concern not to have a guy like that. Now, obviously, they're expecting a big step up from Marvin Harrison Jr. this year, even more improvement from Michael Wilson. But you're right, they don't have that burner type of guy. Now, there's not that many of them in the draft because a lot of guys are really fast, but they don't do a lot of the other things well. And so that's still going to be something that they're trying to develop and trying to get. But I think mostly what happened in this draft, unless they had taken a guy like Matthew Golden, in the 1st round, unless they had done something like that, I don't know that there was anybody. I'm not saying there weren't good receivers in the draft, but when they got to their picks, the value was more there for those defensive guys. But that's still going to be something they have to look at. I don't know if it's going to be able to be solved this year, but I do think, though, when I say not a major concern, they've got enough, I think, on offense to be able to be very efficient, to be very effective, and with better defense. I mean, that's a key. I mean, sometimes I think, guys, we forget how complementary, don't talk about enough, how complementary football is. Everyone tries to analyze the offense as if it's in a vacuum and the defense as if it's in a vacuum, but they play off each other. And if you're doing a better job on defense, and that's not only limiting yards and all that, it's getting takeaways, getting the ball to the offense in good positions, then I think that, that itself, by an improvement on defense, can help the offense. And with the guys they have, with McBride and the running game and all those things, this still is a team I think that can be very effective. But down the road or whenever, that is an area I think that you'd like to have, some more firepower at that position.
Howard, when's the last time you saw an Arizona Cardinals team have a wealth of defensive linemen and edge rushers, linebackers, so to speak? But can you remember a time when the Cardinals had a situation where they're going to have to make cuts with some of these guys?
No, that's exactly right. And I don't go back that far, to be quite honest, but obviously over the last couple of years, they were just struggling sometimes with the injuries and all those things.
Yes.
Just to have 4 or 5 guys out there on game day. Now you're looking at that defensive line and you're going to say, boy, who's not going to have jobs? Some of the edge rushers. But a big thing with the edge rushers, as we all know, in terms of complementary football, if that improvement on the upfront guys on the line can help against the run, then you have more of a chance to rush the passer in those known pass situations. They've also got a lot of numbers now at cornerback. So when you look at how they've improved, from the top to the bottom of that roster on defense with depth and with potential starters, it has a real chance to get a whole lot better on this defense for this season.
You guys are clear to start wrapping.
Helps the offense.
Does Darius Robinson, is he a threat to not make this team? I'm just putting it out there.
I don't even know who the guy is.
I mean,
we haven't seen him.
I don't know, Howard. Just saying.
No, well, I mean, from that, no, he I don't think there's always competition.
Yes.
But I think they all know what they saw in Darius Robinson and what he was. Then granted, it was only the preseason, what they saw and all those things. But, he didn't play that many snaps in the preseason
That's
games.
my point.
And that was by design because of what they had seen from him in practice and in training camp and all those things. So they know what type of talent he is. but he's got to go out there this year and prove it. But in terms of making the roster, no, I don't think there's any question about that because of what this guy is capable of and what he can with his production can help that defensive line.
Yeah, I say that tongue in cheek. But I'm just saying, he's going to have to really hump it in order to make be in the mix as far as the rotations that Rawlins puts as far as each and every game. I would think.
No, he's going to have to do it, and he was doing it last year, and he was going to be playing a lot of snaps, and so it was obviously we know it was a lost rookie season. He did play 6 games at the end of the year. Wasn't tremendously productive, but he learned what the game was all about in those times, and he got some decent number of snaps. And so now he can go into this year and just like you said, really hump it, so to speak. But yeah, when you and especially with some of the age of some of the guys they have on that defense, obviously he's still a young guy, and he's their future.
Clear to rep
that position, and I think I think he's going to get it done. There's no reason to think he won't, but. Like I said, as with every guy who gets out there, they've got to prove that they can do it.
45 seconds left. So are you basically saying that Simon, Birch, Johnson, and Nolan will all be on this team when the regular season begins?
Oh, yeah. I'd be shocked if they're not.
Okay.
There'd have to be something crazy that would happen for them not to be on the team. And so, those are guys, and I think when you talk about rotation, there's going to be a lot of snaps in the rotation for them. No defensive lineman plays 80, 90% of the snaps. And so Nolan's going to be on that. Johnson, obviously, as long as he's healthy, is going to be getting a lot of time, at cornerback. And so it's, I think on paper, it's a good draft. But I laugh at the grades and what everybody gives. I'll tell you a quick story. I know you said 45 seconds. Everyone was crowing that Pro Football Focus came out and gave the Cardinals an A+. Well, guess what? I looked up the 2020 draft, and Pro Football Focus gave the Cardinals an A+. And there's nobody on the. I don't think there's anybody on the roster now from the 2020 draft, and only two or three guys are even in the NFL. So that just shows you what grades 2 days after the draft mean.
That's why we have you on this show every week. Thank you, my brother. That's Howard Balzer, everybody, and he has been presented by All City Towing, and you can join the team at the largest towing company in the state. It's All City Towing, and they're hiring dispatchers, call takers, lot attendants, drivers, and customer service personnel. And not only do they pay well, they have great benefits for you as well. Set work schedules, healthy 401k, employer match, employer paid life insurance, also a monthly fuel allowance. And I'm just mentioning a few. There is so much more. Here's all you have to do if you're looking for a new gig and you want to go in a different direction in your career. Just go online, allcitytowing.com, and search careers. Again, it's allcitytowing.com and search careers. All City Towing, where your future is on the move. Quick break as we continue here at Twin Peaks at Camelback. When